Bismillah wa salatu salam ala Rasulillah. So today we're going to talk about ABA sign language. ABA sign language for children who are non-verbal, meaning that they're not speaking, they're not communicating, but in this situation they have the ability to speak. They have vocal cords that are working perfectly fine. They can scream during tantrums. Sometimes they may imitate songs. Sometimes they may have a cholia. They may imitate different things that people may say. And they may have a few words. Typically, no, maybe food, maybe mom would be one of those words. But the words are very limited. So we're talking about people who, or children who have the ability to speak, but they're not using their vocal cords and their speech in a functional way. So I just want to make that clear because there are nonverbal children who do not have the ability to speak. And so there's a few tweaks in how we help those children communicate. Okay? One thing when you decide ABA language that you're going to use for your patient or for your client, in general, you want to use universal signs. Signs that are universally used throughout the applied behavior analysis field. In general, there are some exceptions to that. The reason why you want to use things that are generally well known is because the child will perhaps go from center to center. And so when going from center to center, maybe you'll have this child for 6 months, maybe you'll have them for a year, maybe you'll have them for a few months, maybe even simultaneously. They're dealing with different special education professionals and speech pathologists and so forth and so on. And so you want to try to keep the signals that are most well known and most general when it comes to the ABA community. And I say that with a grain of salt because there are a few exceptions. And also I've made some exceptions in the list that I'll provide for you with 20 popular ABA signs that we use in my clinic and also with the students that I teach or the people that I supervise. Some of them are a little bit different, but for the most part, you want to try to keep them the same. An exception would be, for example, if you have a sign that requires two hands, for example, and your patient is only able to use one hand, or is only able to use one hand well, then you would try to, change that sign to something that's more convenient for him. Also, if he is associated a sign with something else, and the sign may add some confusion for him, then you may want to have something specifically for that child. A third case would be if he's already communicating with a sign that's different than what's normally used in ABA. So he has a sign that implies that he wants more food, which is different than the typical sign. Okay, well, if he's already developed a sign or he's already familiar with something else, then allow him to use that. Another exception would be if the sign is not culturally appropriate for the child that you're teaching. So there are some things in sign language, standard American Sign Language as well as ABA, that have different meanings in different parts of the world. And so there's a particular sign, you probably know what it is. In the Arab world, this is something that may be offensive. But it's a regular sign used in ABA. And so, if you're in an Arab-speaking country, you may not want to have the child using that sign offending people, so you may choose something else. But generally, as much as possible, you want to try to keep to the well-used signs so that when the child transitions to other services, or when they're working with other professionals, or when they're with other settings, these things will be commonly known among those professionals, and they can easily communicate with the child or understand the child's communication. So I just have 20 signs that I'm going to use. I would recommend not using more than 25 or 30. You know, when you're using more than 30, if you have a child who is really low functioning, then it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult to master all these different signs. It becomes confusing. It even becomes confusing for the therapist. Okay. If you have a child that could really master 40 or 50 signs or 60 signs, then they don't need to be using ABA sign language. They need to learn the actual sign language if it's still difficult for them to speak. So again, if we have a child who could really learn 40, 50, 60 different signs, then the best situation for them is to learn the actual sign language. So ABA sign language is just is very abbreviated, and you want the child to be able to express some basic needs, the most important needs. I need to eat. I need to get to the bathroom. Hey, I need to take a break. I'm overwhelmed right now. I want to play. The basic, fundamental human or child needs. They need to be able to communicate that. And so that's what the ABA is looking at. If you have a child that can really master 40, 50, 60 signs, then they need to be communicating with sign language. They need to understand how to make full sentences, how to communicate complete thoughts, how to communicate, internal feelings, if they have that ability. So the ABA sign language is just the essentials. This is not meant to replace language. It is not meant to replace communication. It is not meant to be a language, but it's meant to just get across those basic needs, right? So, the child needs a break, the child needs help, the child needs something to drink, the child needs to go to the restroom. How can he communicate those things? And how can you understand and receive that communication? And so that's what we're looking at. So whatever signs you come up with, try to make sure they're universal if possible. If the child has a specific situation where they're only using one hand, or they're used to a sign already, or a sign may add confusion, then of course you want to make things specific to that child as possible, when needed. This video with these signs are meant for the therapist as well as for the parent. So the parent should also, during parent training, be learning these signs so that they understand the child's communication. And they should be learning the signs so that they're communicating with the child in a way that the child can understand. And also, they want to be reinforcing, not reinforcing in the ABA sense, but reinforcing in the general sense of the English word. They want to be reinforcing what's happening at the center, or what's happening in the hospital, or what's happening at the school that the therapist is doing. And so you're introducing another change agent that can also work with the child on these signs. Okay, so that's also important. And then also, yes, you want to use reinforcement in the ABA sense, that when the child is using these the signs at home, they're getting what they need. If they want to go to the bathroom, mom's taking them to the bathroom. If they need to eat, mom's giving them something to eat. And so it is reinforcing in that sense as well, that you have another environment other than the clinical environment, that the child is gaining access to what he or she needs using the ABA sign language. Okay, before we get started with 1 and 2, we want to mention that in the ABA sign language, the verbal command should be, if possible, matched with the physical motion. And so even if the child, because we said that the child is able to speak, is able to produce sound, but isn't producing the sound in a functional way. And so we want to get as close as an approximation to the sound, the desired sound as possible, and we want them to do the physical motion, right? So the first two, the exact same physical motion, but they have different articulations. The first two, number one, is going to be high, right, where you're waving. And then the second one obviously is going to be by, right? So the exact same physical motion, but you want to try to get the child, if they're saying anything close to high, and then you're marking on the approximation. Eventually you're going to move up, but if they're getting anywhere close to that, you're trying to shape that, and at the beginning of the shaping, you're going to give a plus for any approximation or any sound that's even remotely close to high, okay, at the first step of the shaping phase. Same thing with by. If we get b or b or anything close to the sound of by at the beginning stage in shaping, we're going to go ahead and give that a plus. And then we're going to move that along until we shape to the ultimate and desired sound that we want. Okay? So we're trying to get a high approximation for number one with the physical movement, and we're trying to get a by approximation for number two with the physical movement. Okay? And so if you're doing a full prompt in that situation, you gently just take the child's hand, hold it up, and wave it from side to side for both, and then you would articulate the desired sound. Okay, so number 3 and 4 are drink and eat. In some centers or some environments, they refer to it as thirsty and hungry, or thirsty and food. Okay, so the main thing here with numbers 3 and 4, you want to keep it consistent across the board. So whatever you choose, if you choose the word thirsty, then it has to be thirsty across the board. All the time, at your center, at your clinic, at your hospital, at the home, at the school, it has to be thirsty across the board. Later on, when the child learns the skill, when they've mastered the skill, if you want to generalize it to other words, you can. So number 3, you're going to hold your hand like such, your thumb out, the pinky out, you're going to point it towards your face, and you're going to say, thirsty, thirsty. Or if you find it, if it behooves you, you can use the word drink and say, drink, drink. So how does it work in context? You would say, hey Ahmed, are you thirsty? Match the word with the symbol, right? Or hey Ahmed, you want something to drink? Right? But remember, whatever word that you match with that ABA sign, keep it the same across the board. So don't tell him, ask him if he's thirsty, and then 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later say, you want soda? Soda? No, we can't change it in the beginning. Pick one word, thirsty, drink, and then use that, pair that with the symbol across the board until he's mastered it. When he's mastered it, you can generalize it to other things. You want milk, you want soda, you want this, you want that. But now we need him to match one word with that symbol. Same thing for the fourth one. You're going to hold your hand like so, and you're either going to say eat, or you're going to say food, food. So you can say, ah. Or a third one, of course, is hungry. You can say, hungry, hungry. So whether you choose eat, hungry, or food, once you've made that decision, match it with the symbol or the sign and use that across the board. Do not switch it in the initial stages. So it works like this. You have some Cheetos over here, and maybe Ahmed is working for the Cheetos. So you have him kind of put it in the back. He's got his program in front of him. You're giving him instructions. He reaches over and tries to grab the Cheetos. You say, hey, Ahmed, are you hungry? Are you hungry? And if he says yes, I would just give him one Cheeto or give him part of a Cheeto, right? As a reinforcement for using that communication, okay? What some people do is, if he asks if he's hungry, they say, okay, we have 2 more and you can eat the Cheetos. You're hungry? Okay, if you're hungry, you do 2 more and you can have the Cheetos. So some people do it that way. I prefer to reinforce him immediately. If he asks for the Cheetos, just give him a small amount or a small portion. Okay? So you can use these things in the session itself. Try to use these things during the session. Number 5 and 6 are probably the easiest. Yes. Shaking the head up and down. Yes. And no. Right? And so if you're doing the full prompt, you want to make sure that the child shakes his head. So don't grab the head forcefully or anything like that, but gently, maybe grab the chin and say, yes. Gently rock it up and down. Or very gently, you can touch the cheeks and say, no, no. So you can ask him whatever question you want. Ahmed, do you want to take a break? Yes. Okay, say yes. Move his head up and down. And you also want to get any approximation of him saying yes at the same time. Right? Yeah. Anything that he's trying to do, initially when you're trying to shape the sound, give him the reinforcement for the attempt, an approximation, and matching that with the sign, right? So he's got to do 2 things every time in order to get a plus for that trial. He's got to give us an approximation in the shaping phase, verbally, and he's got to give us a close approximation of the physical sign. Okay, so we need the head movement. Try to get it exaggerated, going all the way up, all the way down. And for no, try to get it exaggerated, going from right to left. The more you can exaggerate it, the better, because it's going to translate to things outside of the center. These are things that his playmates are going to understand, his relatives are going to understand, people in the street as well are going to be able to understand those things. Okay.
I'm sorry.
لا ما فيش مشكلة. And so sometimes you get a kid that, barely moves his head or barely moves his head like this. And, we may give them the plus when we're recording the trials because it is an approximation of the movement that you want. But just remember, your ultimate goal is to have it very exaggerated, because the more exaggerated it is, the obvious is going to be for someone that's looking at him. So try to get the head to go all the way from right to left for no, and left back to right with the sound as well. And then yes, which is number 5, try to get the same thing. Not completely back, but you want it to go back farther enough so that people can see he's clearly saying yes. Okay. Okay, 6 and 7. Good. It's easy enough. Good. And bad. Right? So you can use these for the child's mood. How does the food taste to the child? How does the child enjoy an event? Right? So you can say, Ahmed, how's the food? Is it good? It's good? Okay. Say good. And match that sound with the symbol. Right? Similar, if he's drinking something or if he's eating something that he doesn't like, he throws it up or he tries to push it away or something like that. So this gives the opportunity to use communication. You say, oh, you don't like it? Does it taste bad? Does it taste bad, Ahmed? Like this. So match the word good or bad with the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Number 9 is play. Play. When I do play, I try to put so it's the same, you put your thumbs out and the pinky out. I put my hands to the side and you wiggle them. Okay? Hey Ahmed, would you like to play? Would you like to play? Try, and when he imitates you, it imitates you by you giving a command. So you say, Ahmed, would you like to play? Say play. So give the command for him to make the verbal statement as well as perform the sign. One thing you need to be careful about this is that your hand should be by your side and not close to your mouth. When you put it close to the mouth, it kind of imitates or looks similar to the drinking. So you'll find some people that say play and then they put their hand here. It's a little confusing for the child because the child may think that you're saying thirsty or you're saying drink. So do not have your hand anywhere near your face when you're using play. Try to have your hands to the side and you're shaking them, right? Another point of confusion also is if your hand is close to your ear, kind of looks like a telephone, right? So this is something that some people use to communicate a telephone, right? So don't have your hand anywhere near your head if you're going to communicate play, right? It could be confused with drinking, thirsty, or it could be confused with, hey, someone's on the telephone, right? So your hands need to be down by your sides, below your shoulders, and they're moving. Ahmed, would you like to play? Okay. The next symbol is number 10, which is work. This is the symbol that I've invented myself. I found it conducive for children. Typically, the symbol for work is something like this or something like this. I choose not to use that one because it's kind of confusing. There's a lot of symbols that have like hands kind of crossing and moving and things like that. And so I have my own symbol, which takes 2 fingers, right? And there's a continuous motion. So you want to move them forward. That means work. And it kind of signals, because the general context is that we have to keep going. We have to, keep moving along. We have more to do before we can finish and take a break. So it's kind of like symbols like we have to keep going, right? I use 2 fingers instead of 1 because when you get to 1 finger, it kind of mimics some other communication, what I want, what you want, and it gets a little confusing there. So I use 2 fingers around the chest area, and then I just rotate them forward to signal work, right? And so I'm communicating with the child. I see he wants to get up, he wants to leave the table, or something like that. I say, Ahmed, we can play a little later. We have to do work now. or now it's work time, like this. And so that's the context that we would use that in. The next one is all done. Number 11 is all done, and 12 is stop. They kind of go together, so we'll teach them both together. For all done, some people kind of raise their hands and they do like this as an all done. I found that a little confusing because children, especially on the spectrum, they have a lot of movement, they have a lot of hand movement, especially if they're excited or if they're aroused, if they become anxious or nervous or anyway. And so it can be kind of confusing when the hands go up and they're kind of like going in different areas. And so the all done that I have is something that is more clear. The child clearly has to signal and cross their hands or cross up to the forearms and say, all done. All done, we're finished, right? And so sometimes the child is just waiting for the activity to finish or be complete so that they know that they can go to the play area, or they can have a break, or they can go get something to eat. And so you symbol to the child and you simply say, all done, like this, right? Try to get them also to match the sound with this with the sound. The second one, stop. It seems like it's the same, but it's not quite the same in terms of the usage, in terms of when you would use it. And so stop is this motion here. Stop. Stop. But you would most often use that when you want to take a break. And so you would use that in a situation where you're going to stop again. You're going to start again. Or you would use it in a situation where the child just wants to escape. So whatever you're doing, whatever activity is happening, the child just needs a break. That doesn't mean that he's all done, but it means that we can stop for a moment, right? And so, and if you want to use the word break instead of stop, you can also do that, but then you have to be consistent with that across the board, okay? So, for example, you're working with the child, you've got 10 trials to do, he does 3 or 4 trials, and he gets extremely annoyed, he gets extremely tired, and you say, Ahmed, you want a break? Or Ahmed, you want to stop for a little bit, right? So you want to make that symbol. That's totally different than all done. You know, the all done means we finished this activity, it's over with. So if I give you a 2-minute break, you know, and I told you it was all done, and then you come back and you have to do another 10 or 15 minutes, you're going to be a little bit upset, right? So all done means just that, all done. We completed the activity, we're moving on to another activity. Where stop simply means that we're going to take a break, a temporary break for a little bit, or the child could be communicating to you that they're getting over aroused, over excited, and whatever's happening, you know, they want, you know, an escape for it. So it could be going in the other direction as well, right? So we have all done, and we have stop, which is more a temporary break instead of completely being done with the activity. Okay, 13 and 14, we have more and wait. The physical signs look a little bit similar. So for 13, we have more, right? This can be used in a number of situations. You're giving the child a break for 2 minutes and he says, more, right? So you may say, Ahmed, do you need more time? Do you need more time? Tell me. So he should imitate you and say, more, right? And you can use it in other situations as well. You're giving the child some water. You fill the glass halfway up, and he says, more, right? Same thing, you're looking for approximations of the word as best as he can, wherever you are in the shaping stage. And you're looking for the closest approximation that can be possible for the physical sign itself, right? The next one is wait. Be a little patient. You have a little bit more to go. And it's similar that you're going to hold your hand like this and you're going to fold it up. But it's not going parallel. It's going from up to down, right? And it's going to be off to your side. So you're going to say, wait. Wait means be patient. Okay, so it's a little bit like more, but it's only one hand and it's in a different position. Wait. Wait. Remember, they're pairing the word with the symbol. The most common, and this is one that I've changed, the most commonly used sign for wait in ABA is this sign. But I've avoided it because it kind of looks like you're telling someone to stop. And it also looks like I want. So the I want symbol is like this. The stop signal is like this in some ABA centers. And also, this is kind of close to hi, bye. So to avoid the confusion, I have not used this symbol for wait. I personally, over my years of experience, have found it's better to go with a totally different sign. And so this is the wait symbol colloquially in the Middle East. It's understood by almost generally everyone. And this is the symbol that we use for wait. So more and wait. So 15 and 16, we just discussed I want. So you point at yourself and then you hold your hand up. I want, like this, And obviously if, you're talking to the kid, you could point to him and say you want. But I try to avoid that because sometimes children, if they're on the spectrum, they mix up, his and her, me and you, I and you. And so I would just have the child imitate you. And so I'd say, Ahmed, do you want to play with the toy truck? Say, I want truck. I want truck. Now you say, so get him to try to imitate that same symbol would be best. The next one is please. So you take your hand and you kind of rub your chest area and you say, please, please. Now sometimes with these symbols you can match them up. You can make sentences and you can use two together. So, it's totally fine if the child says, please stop. Please stop. Or please more. Please more. That's also fine. That's also perfectly acceptable. Okay, 17 and 18. We're going to use the word restroom or bathroom or toilet. Toilet is probably the easiest one to pronounce. But if you find that they have restroom or bathroom in the vocabulary, maybe the grandmother uses it or something like this, then you're going to go even with the longer word. And so you simply take your thumb, you put it underneath, separating your forefingers, like so, and then you simply wave it, or you can wave it like this, right? And so you would say, Ahmed, it's time to go to the toilet. Or you can ask them a question. So if you're taking them every 30 minutes to the bathroom, then you're just informing him, right? Maybe you're trying to potty train him, take the diaper off, check it every 30 minutes or every hour. And so you just inform him, Ahmed, we're going to the bathroom. Can you say bathroom? Right? And then he would imitate you. Or you can ask him a question. You know, you see him twitching with his pants, and you would say to him, Ahmed, do you have to use the bathroom? Like this, okay? The next one is sleeping. I usually use one hand when I go to the left, or I go to the right, either or. And you would say, Ahmed, are you sleeping? Ahmed, are you sleeping? Okay. This is one generally for parents. You want to use it at home. Perhaps the child may, be getting agitated because they need to take a rest or something like that. And they want to communicate that. Generally, you wouldn't use it in a center or school. But there are some children that have conditions or they have some physical need which requires them to sleep at school or to sleep at the center. And so in that case, it would be appropriate. But this is mostly for the home setting that parents are going to use either to the left or to the right. They're going to match the word sleeping or sleepy with the physical motion. The most general sign for sleeping used in ABA is with two hands. But when possible, I try to reduce the sign language to one hand because the other one may not be operable or it could be busy. They could be holding something, so forth and so on. And so I try to reduce it as simple as possible. If I can match a word with a signal that just requires one hand, then I do that. And so we're going to go either to the right or to the left with sleeping or sleepy. The next two, help and quiet hands. And so help is going to go like this. I try to foster situations where the child is going to need to ask for help. So maybe he wants to open up a jar of candy. It's too tight for him. And I say, hey, Ahmed, do you need help? Right? And you can switch these. If you want to put the left hand on top and go up and down, or you want to put the right hand on top and go up and down, I would probably go to the strength of the child. Whatever side the child writes with would probably be the one that's on top. And again, it goes to functionality. If one hand is more functional than the other one, then that's going to be the strength hand. But nevertheless, try to foster a situation where the child needs help. So they want to play with the basketball, but you put the basketball up there on top of the refrigerator or on top of the dresser or on top here, and they can't reach it. So they're looking at the ball or they're looking at the iPad with these wide eyes. They're like, I need this thing. So you ask them, you say, hey, Ahmed, do you need help? Ask for help. So you get him to match help with the signal. When he does the signal and any verbal approximation, you give him the ball and it's a natural reinforcement for him. Okay. The last one Quiet hands is more of a directive where the therapist is communicating with the child. You want to do this when the child is doing self-injury, the child is doing destruction of property, the child is being aggressive, the child is doing anything of that sort. So the standard quiet hands or nice hands, sometimes it's referred to as nice hands, is one hand over the other, and just simply put it on the table. And so if you're doing a full prompt, you can calmly just take one hand, not grabbing or fighting with the child or tussling, but calmly grab one hand, grab the other, and put one over the top of the other, and say, quiet hands. And when you do quiet hands, they have to count to 10. So try to get them to calm down, to concentrate on counting and not concentrate on whatever they were doing. Throwing, destroying property, hitting themselves. So, you kind of place one hand over the other, gently put your hand there if you're doing a full prompt. Keep it there to kind of help guide them, and you're going to count with them to 10. 1, 2, 3, all the way through 9, 10. Great job doing quiet hands, right? So this is how it's generally done in ABA. My quiet hands, I make them fold their arms. And then I gently put my hand, if I'm doing a full prompt, over the top of their folded arms. So I would put my hand gently on top here. I have them do the folded arms. So I'd say, Ahmed, quiet hands. Take his hands gently. If I'm doing full prompt, fold them, put my hand on top. And then we count 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10. Great job, Ahmed, doing quiet hands. The reason I have them fold their hands is because, when they're just doing one hand on top of the other, they're still half a second away from hitting you, or, if they were hitting you or they were throwing something, it's a small movement from here to your face, from here to grabbing you, from here to, grabbing something off the table. So this is the most popular quiet hands or nice hands in ABA, but I make them fold the arms. Fold the arms completely, fold the arms, grab like this. It's a little easier. It's easier also to full prompt when the arms are folded and you kind of have your arm here. Just applying a little bit of pressure. Keep the arms down. It's also more difficult for them to do whatever they were doing. So if the crayons are right here, if the marker's right here, once you go into this motion, it's a little more difficult to separate and then grab than if I'm already basically here. So I have the kids fold their arms completely, whichever one you want to do. That's the quiet hands. And again, this one's kind of an exception to the others in the sense that it is not going both ways to communication. But I guess it could go the other way, but mostly this is a directive from a staff member to stop them from self-injury, stop them from being aggressive to others, stop them from destruction of property. And in order to get it to work, you have to practice it all the time. So if they're already wild up, they're already excited, and you say quiet hands, obviously you're not going to do it. So you have to practice it with them when they're not in an elevated state, and you get the compliance. Quiet hands, they fold, they count to 10. You give them the Dorito or the sticker or the token or whatever they're going to get, and they get used to understanding that signal, and then you can get them to perform it in more difficult situations.